Hello, people. Welcome to another edition of Friday Night Knives and Fixed Blade Friday tonight. And we are looking at the Kizer Harpoon. And this is the 10V version. Very, very cool fixed blade here tonight. In fact, let's get right into the quick and dirty measurements of this thing, because it is remarkably small for what it does. In fact, it is under 8 inches, right? I would say right at about 7 5/8 tip to tail, with a cutting length right at about 3 3/4, just under 4 inches, right about 3 3/4, maybe 4 inches, just 7/8. This little arc makes it hard to tell. Anyway, very, very cool on that bit. Another thing is that it's relatively lightweight. For that chunk of 10V, under 4 ounces. Pretty nifty. And even with the sheath, still just barely over 6 ounces. That is really quite an amazing lightweight, everyday carry fixed blade. And let's be real, 10V, that's 10% vanadium. That's going to have a ridiculous amount of edge retention for it. And since it's a tool steel, it's actually a particle metallurgy equivalent to an A11 air cooling tool steel that's been around a long time. Was one of the hardest tool steels prior to particle metallurgy. It was one of the few. In fact, it wasn't so much known for it was known for its toughness as well as its hardness. And this delivers even more. The particle metallurgy makes this really cool. And this thing has a wicked edge on it, right out the box. Can shave the paper down to the tip. No failing. That's good geometry, good edging, good apexing, and really, really hard crystalline structure. Very, very nice. In fact, I have a out of the box, just pulling it out. There was a plastic tip protector. There was all sorts of stuff to make this a very safe thing to come in, and it still cut through the plastic and cut my finger because I was inattentive to how sharp this is, and that's an important. Do a little bit on the relative size so you can get an idea compared to a paramilitary 2. It's actually just slightly smaller in length, significantly more, approximately similar, a little bit more, but approximately similar hand space if you only carry this in saber grip. So, really nice there. And with the Para 3 lightweight, which is just slightly smaller, and again, overall hand space is slightly larger without the choil. So you do get a fair amount of maneuverability and a whole lot of edge for the size. In fact, speaking of edge for the size, one of the ones that, even though it could use a choil, still has a lot of edge for the size is the Kershaw Just a Blur. And not just any leak, but a random leak. So if you look at it that way, the hand space, if you count to tail, where you can put your pinky right there, is almost exactly the same as a leak. And if you count the tip to where your finger is, it's pretty much the same as the Blur. And the cutting edge is more. The Blur gets a lot of cutting edge out of that recurve and the belly, and so with no choil and just kind of a flat spot that your finger can go to, it does pretty good. It does pretty good. And this does a fairly good job of having it with this little heel spot right here. But we'll come back to that in a moment. Because it is a almost full-size fixed blade. 3D Elementum. Again, hand space. Very similar if you count the little pinky spot there. If you count all the way out to the tail, yes, but otherwise still very similar to the bug out without the tail if you go from here up into there. So it gets really close to the bug out on other options. And even though it is a fixed blade, I do want to make sure that my Wiener is almost as big. It is thicker throughout and has at least as exotic a shape. Thank you very much. All right, let's get into this. The damn nice categories. The design of this as a slightly harpooned and scalloped fixed blade is fantastic. The ergonomics of it with the thumb notch and put right up, because for my hands, which again, I wear a large width glove, medium length fingers, I go slide right up against the blade stop there. It's not a bolster, it is just the blade, but it acts as a bolster. And it gives you a great saber grip. Like outstanding control at the heel of the blade for anything you need to do that's sharp. Get a lot of control if you need to get in and do it. And this has all the strength of 10V. It is just fantastic when it comes to that. And I've used this on several things. Boxes. I even tried this on a little bit of wood. It was just some willow wood, so it was relatively open-celled. It wasn't huge and hard, but I wanted to get, in fact, digging it into the tip, as you can see, maybe right there, there's a slight line. It left a mark. I haven't been able to get that clean. So there's the other side isn't so bad. There's just kind of a smooth looking spot, right? But this side still had a line where but it passed all testing. Haven't had to sharpen it. I stropped it on a 5 micron strop 1 swipe per side just to before this to see if it changed anything. It sliced the paper exactly the same before and after. It was really good, and I just did a quick strop just to make sure I didn't catch any spots on camera. But I had tested it before. I didn't see anything. Stropped it. It's just, I didn't have to strop it. I was just honestly worried about it being on camera. The other thing being that you can, if you need to get back on the blade, you can. The sort of hand drill with that curl over right there where the lanyard would go. And you could have lanyards, like you could get a lanyard, put your finger there, wrap the lanyard around, and get some chopping power out of this, right? With the thumb on there, and you can really get it tucked into your hand. That's more of a tactical aspect of it. Now your thumb and finger now your finger's protected behind the blade. It's shoved into your palm so that it's not going to slide out of your hand, and you have your thumb and finger in really strong places of grip. So that's far more of a tactical grip, and it does provide it. And you can even get the pinky down there on that little wedge to help provide in a saber grip. You know, if you're choking back on it, you provide a little bit of support for a thrusting or piercing type of motion. And it really does, the ergonomics are fantastic. I was a little bit worried about the sweep down, but the pinch grip is really unnecessary because I can literally just roll my hand in the grip. And since the balance point is right behind that screw, having this here in this grip gives me the control. The balance point is between this knuckle and these two fingers and under my thumb. This is the control I need for this knife, and it's very nimble here. Choking up on a pinch grip like on a kitchen knife doesn't really provide you with much more. In fact, it's almost more useful to do that same motion, to do the same task, to tuck it under and have the finger on top in that notch, which it does very well. Gives you scoring, cutting, chopping. It's small enough to maintain control, and even though it doesn't maintain the same angle as your finger in this bit, it maintains the same plane, and it's essentially from your knuckle to the tip is a whole nother line, and this is almost like a bridge or truss. So it's very, very easy to maintain control while choked back. You can choke up if you need to do something like pick a sliver. Oh yeah, and if you guys see anything, I have a new cat. If you've ever had a new cat, I'm pretty sure I don't need to say anything more. If you've never had a new cat, get one. They're awesome. You should try it. I live alone. A friend needed someone to take their cat. I hate to see it. I love animals, and I hate to see them, get put down unnecessarily. I had the space. We humans thought it was a great idea. The cat so far it has expressed his displeasure at his life being controlled by humans, mostly at me. So yeah. Anyway, so be it. Another good part of this design is the aesthetics of this knife, and that harpoon and notch, as well as just the full belly blade, they balance it with sort of this widening thing that gives it this great wedge look. Really, really beautiful to my eyes. And it's, look, part of the design is also the sheath. It even looks good in the sheath. I have this reset up for scalp carry. So it's definitely something that you may or may not like. It does not come this way. It comes set up for up and down carry, so you can carry it on a belt or anything like that on a sheath, with it, which it works very well. It pops in and out very nicely. And it looks good either way. I kind of like the scalp carry because it doesn't have... It takes a fair amount, and as long as it's snappy and I don't use it very often, this is exactly the kind of thing I would carry, say, like around the camp, where I might be kneeling down or sitting down or something like that a lot more, where this in the small of my back, or just kind of on the back side of my hip where I don't have a pack or anything, is far more useful. If I have a pack or something like that, this would go the other way so that it's sitting upright and I can put it on, say, like the pack belt or some other horizontal strap and keep this vertical. But for most around the camp or EDC style, around the camp outdoor style stuff or EDC style use, this is the best way for me to use it. And it does have a nice little rain hole right at the tip. So there's a water evacuation spot. It is very well thought out. Relatively slim little clip, which is nice. And it has the same type of hole pattern as, say, something like a Tech Lock or anything like that. So where this fits, I believe those will also. So as you can see, some common hole patterns. So I think the aesthetics are pretty nice. The mechanics are really hard to fault. Like, it's a fixed blade. The contouring on the handles is nice. It goes right with its ability to use the placing of the notch for good grip and for positive indexing, as well as just attention to detail in the straight here versus the curved here in the way that you would use a knife. It's not so much the mechanics as the thoughtfulness into the design for the mechanics of usage. And in that sense, this knife does excel. The design is well thought out. It's even chamfered a little bit for lanyard use, which sometimes in the outdoors or anything like that can be. I don't use it for EDC, but I was a Boy Scout at some point and all that sort of stuff. I have actually used outdoor knives with a lanyard and used it to great effect. It just isn't something I care to do. It's not my favorite, but if I'm going hunting with something, I will take both a lanyard to wrap around my wrist and sometimes even my fingers, depending on what I need to do. It just happens. If your hands get wet and stuff like that, it's nice to have a rope, especially if you're in any place rocky or like a ledge. It's nice to have 100% positive retention spot. All right, that being said, noteworthy points. 10V steel. A11 particle metallurgy, air hardening, hard ass, tough, high wear resistance tool steel. Fantastic. And it has a very, very nice, I think this might be Cerakote. It doesn't look like DLC, it might be, but it has a very tough, I've used this quite a bit. There is some marking on it that I haven't been able to clean off, but considering I mean, I don't have a spreadsheet or anything like that, but I put it through a fair amount of usage. Number one, it's fun to use. If fixed blades often can be, it has just a great, once they have this great feel in the hand, they can be really fun to use. This thing is absolutely a package piercer. This thing is so easy to get through tape, all that sort of stuff. Saran wrap slicer, opening up food, cardboard carver, along with that package piercer, cut through tape, cut through cardboard, no problem. And an envelope eviscerator. You can actually get this into a nice little pinch grip or upside down to open up envelopes and tear through a stack of envelopes or a stack of bills if you have to. Not saying that I let them build up like that, but hypothetically and stuff, asking for a friend. So yeah, and I really think that brings us to the other noteworthy point, which is also its intended purpose as an EDC style fixed blade. It's just on the smaller side. It can double duty as a very, very capable around camp fixed blade for outdoor, where you're not so much for food prep because of the acid and stuff. The coating would help, but it wouldn't do it. But for things like wood, wet wood, whittling, things like bushcraft where you can use that sort of tip, possibly some small game. If you know how to trap or anything like that, setting up, moving, maneuvering, doing those small things, the pointy tip, full blade, wear resistance, and just overall strength and toughness of this steel would do very well in that particular scenario and use case. It does everything else fantastic. And quite honestly, the 10V steel with this kind of thoughtfulness is really overkill for an EDC. This thing will cut boxes for days. No, it is not the same as a 15V. And if you're wondering, yes, be on the lookout. This review has not dropped yet. But that's about one of the few things that's going to hold an edge longer than this. I mean, we're talking edge retention in the S90V range, toughness, but double or triple the toughness in it. It's just really, really amazing. It's one of the only things that you'll see that has better edge retention or wear resistance is going to be things like 15V from Crucible or Maximate or something that's basically carbide with a steel binder. So yeah, there's quite a bit of edge retention there. And the cost to value ratio on this is actually pretty phenomenal. One, as you can see, the curve right here that I was worried about really lends itself to the finger coming out. It kind of actually fits the same curve. And even the thumb print works along with it. It's really an ingenious type of curve. And the extra contouring where the finger wraps around is appreciated for indexing and comfort. But the cost of value on it, I believe this thing was right around $100. I don't have the thing in front of me. They're coming back around with some D2 steel. Again, not the same as the 10V. All of the same stuff applies, but the noteworthy points is just that it's a good EDCK. D2 has a lot of the same qualities as 10V, just 10V has more of it. Just more of everything that is great about D2. 10V is that much more. D2 is only like 1 to 1.5% vanadium, so you're talking like 10 times the vanadium approximately. So there you go. And about half the chromium or so. It's just it's a really great steel that I don't think on some fixed. The worst part is it's non-stainless, but for its toughness, wear resistance and such, this is an oldie but a goodie. The A11 has been around a really long time. 10V is one of the first steels with the high vanadium count that got it. So this has been around a long time, and the particle metallurgy version of its superiority to the ingot steel has been known for a very long time. So this is a fantastic knife steel. And that really puts me at the expectations part. I got this because I wanted to try the 10V. I wanted to see, and I trusted Kizer to do a decent heat treat job, and I'm sure they did. It seems to do well. Like, it just, you can chop, you can cut, you can slice. The edge is Let's see if I have any hair left. The edge is still shaving sharp. Again, one pass on a 5-micron diamond strop just to make sure there wasn't anything folded over, and I didn't feel anything. It was there just to make sure that I had a smooth edge for the video. I did it just to make sure that it is still. I've had this approximately a month, and I've used it at least 2 times a week, for, even if necessary, just to cut down boxes and use it for that kind of stuff. Find different use cases for it, and it has done everything fantastically. It has exceeded all my expectations. I am not an EDC knife person, but I have a strong case for taking this relatively inexpensive, relatively replaceable knife with me on any day hike I take. I have previously used knives like the Kershaw Lone Rock and 8CR, and I still might, because for light use this is there for just a constant day. But if I needed any serious hard use, a diamond sharpener, a foldable diamond sharpener, and the 10V would be the best use case. For the 8CR is that you can sharpen it on just about any rock you find. But this has been my day hiking knife in the past. I had also thought I might swap out that for the Civivi Midwatch too as a day hiking knife, and this may still happen. But that big clip, which is fantastic by the way, for this, and even though it's basically VG10, right? Still great steel, all that sort of stuff, just compared to the 10V. The thicker handle for use. This would again be something that I would probably use more like I would the 8CR13 or the Lone Rock. But if I knew that I was going somewhere where I had a serious possibility of needing a survival companion, and I could only take one fixed blade, this would probably be it. I just know that I have a portable diamond sharpener already, so that isn't necessarily the problem. Problem for me would be only 600 grit. It's like 320 and 600 grit. Are you kidding me? Like, that's it. But it is what it is. So yeah, this would be a fantastic use case. And I don't have any requests. I really don't. 10V is fantastic. There's people who might want the cheaper version, but honestly, getting a 10V EDC fixed blade or small length fixed blade like this that you can use for small camp tasks, bushcraft tasks, or EDC usage in a 10V blade is about the pinnacle. It only kind of goes down from here. Yeah, you could get like a big brown bear special or a sprint run, or you could find ways to get a magna cut version where you lose some of the edge retention to get a whole lot of corrosion resistance, and probably similar toughness. So you'll swap out a little bit a fair amount of edge retention for a whole lot of corrosion resistance. That might be the only thing, a magna cut version of it instead of a D2, because this is just an outstanding design that's been well thought out as an EDC fixed blade, and it does it all well. It has a good compact. This smaller clip is actually a bonus to me. This gives you more things like a smaller belt, or basically just dealing with the lighter weight of the knife. It allows everything else to be smaller as well. It also allows for a fairly nice scout carry or concealed style in the small of the back under a jacket. And it also maneuvers around, so there's lots of different carry options. It really just does it all well. And the 10V steel is fantastic. It's like I said, the only other thing that you could do, and it would be for specific things like getting corrosion resistance, would be like a magna cut blade, because now you're keeping the same toughness, giving up some wear resistance, and gaining essentially near ideal corrosion resistance. It's up there with things like Vanex and LC200N and that sort of stuff when it comes to corrosion resistance. It's at or near peer to those completely rustless steels. So yeah, very, very cool for that. But you give a 10, I would buy another one. I would have a 10V and a Magna Cut because they have, this one's going to be tough, hard use. You may even bump it into rocks or something like that. And the Magna Cut would be for any place where you would have to run into a lot of water, and they would make it would make a really good dual carry, quite honestly. But that would be the only thing. A Magna Cut. If there's any request, give me a Magna Cut version instead of a D2. That's it. 10V is really the other side of the coin for you're going for wear resistance and toughness. But basically no corrosion resistance. So yeah, it has its usage, it has its benefits, and I'm going to go with 4 stars, mostly because I'm not a fixed blade person. And let me take that back. 4.5 stars. It's not perfect. A slightly longer handle might have been better in my estimation, or if this came back and then had a slight concavity. But that, there's other things that it would impact if it did so, and the fact that it comes right at the peak of the contouring is there. It's really not. It's really more subjective. This is extraordinarily well thought out. So it's more about subjectivity and the fact that it isn't corrosion resistance, and I don't have a corrosion resistant option that's of the same caliber of 10V, which quite honestly would be something like Vanex or Magna Cut. S35VN doesn't really cut it when it comes to the same quality. I'm not giving or getting the same value. To be quite honest, the other steel that would match 10V for similar type quality would be Magna Cut. So that's probably one of the only other things. But it's just otherwise an extraordinarily well done knife from Kizer. The design, right? Let me see, Maverick Customs. Done very well by Maverick Customs on the Harpoon. Very good little EDC fixed blade, and I would say light duty camp knife, but it really is not a light duty. This 10V can take some heavy duty use. So it's a small knife that can take heavy duty use in a camp or bushcraft situation. While giving you edge retention for days. The only downside to that is it does pretty much require a diamond sharpener to get sharp. And as long as you have one of those, it is no problem. You can do it. And it is well worth it. 4.5 stars, highly recommendable. Great design. Aesthetics are beautiful. The mechanics of the ergonomics and the way they thought it out works perfectly. It's got that 10V. It is intended to be an EDC and a heavy-duty, small-duty knife. It does so well at a very good price point that makes it really hard for other people to be competitive with it. And it really just kind of exceeds all expectations when it comes to its chosen tasks. And if there's any request to make this a little bit nicer, it's give me a Magna Cut version to put alongside of it. And that's really all there is to say about it. 4.5 stars, an excellent fixed blade EDC knife. And with that, everyone, I'm going to wrap this up. Go ahead, take this video, watch it twice. Comment as much as you like, be mindful of side effects. Remember to like and subscribe. This has been your Dose of Drew. I am said Drew, and you guys have a great rest of your night.